Anyone who's ever lost someone dear to them will know just how odd things feel afterwards. At first, there's much to be done, funeral arrangements and so on. And then other people seem to move on, and you can be left in a sort of limbo. I sometimes wonder what would happen if the lost person came back then, as Jesus did. After his family and closest friends had had the sheer relief of seeing him again, well, nothing was quite the same. There was the added threat from Jesus' enemies. At the time of the crucifixion, they were far from home, with nothing wholly familiar to cling to. The obvious solution was to go back to their roots. But in view of recent events, they couldn't simply pretend that the last 3 years had never happened. They were all agreed. Jesus was back now, but in some completely new form. Going home seemed sensible, but they had changed too. Someone else was going to have to take the lead now. In the past, that had always been Peter. But since the night of Jesus' arrest, understandably, he seemed to have lost his confidence.
It were all very peculiar, Jesus, coming and going, being very definitely him, and not like him and all. If I'm honest, I thought I were losing my marbles. Of course we were overjoyed, but bewildered too. One minute he were dead, definitely dead. Next he's not. In safe house, large as life, breathing, speaking. But now you see me, now you don't. Couldn't get my head round that. Well, what would you have done? Jesus, first thing he would have done was speak to God, but somewhere nice and quiet. I so wanted to speak to him, tell him I was sorry, but how? Where? It were a long way back to Galilee. Us families were there keeping things going somehow. Doubt I'd ever have been with Jesus at all, or my brother Andrew, if it hadn't been for Jesus first off healing mother-in-law from a fever. Wife wouldn't have wanted me going, but her mother said, Rabbi needs him. And what Ma says, Any road, once we made it back, my mind were full of the old days. From the first time I clapped eyes on him when I were throwing me nets. Follow me were all he had to say. He used to get into boat and sail across if he wanted to pray, or anchor offshore to speak to crowd. And then that crazy storm, if that didn't put the wind up as proper, him stopping it just like that. Well, who can do that? I tried to tell him I weren't fit company. He took no notice. And then he walked on the water. Terrified we were. Again, I had a go too, of course. Didn't end so well. Suddenly imagined a shoal of little silver fish under my feet. He pulled me out, though. Just. It were like flat calm after we saw him again, going neither back nor forward. I needed normal somewhere. Somewhere we weren't completely out of a step, so first evening I says to the others, I'm off fishing. They couldn't get on board quick enough. What a relief, the slap of the water on the gunnels, the ropes running through us fingers. Amazing how it comes back to you. Night fishing. Silver darlings don't see you coming, but the lake were that still. Needed trawl nets in the dark, but making no headway, so they were just limp. Came up empty over and again. We were quiet. Talked ourselves out, I suppose. And when dawn came, well, we were shattered. Didn't really know who we were, now it were all over. Time to pack it in. Call ourselves fishermen. Suddenly, though, over on bank there's a man shouting, asking if we'd caught out. Said we should try, t'other side of boat. Wise guy, huh? Didn't even look like a fisherman. practically soon as nets dropped, the boat lurched, and one of the others, shielding his eyes against the sun, says, "That'll be the master." Well, we weren't far out, and I weren't going to risk another disappearing act, so I dragged my clothes on and I jumped over the side. I could still hear the boys shouting as how the net were full to busting. But I felt daft asking then, even if he looked so different, 'cause they landed over 150 whoppers. Who else? We'd been there all night. Don't ask me how the nets didn't tear. Barbecue on the beach for breakfast, his idea, then passing it round, strangely familiar. It were the third time we'd seen him since, but I still couldn't rest easy knowing what I'd done. I said I didn't even know him 3 times, like he predicted. He never mentioned it, except then he asks me, do I love him? Not once, not even twice. 3 times. Talk about rubbing salt in it. And the deal was, I'm to care for his flock. He'd talked about sheep that many times. I got his drift right away. Always reckoned we'd be fishing for people. Fish were not for us now, I knew. That were the catch, see. If I really were sorry, career downgrade. To shepherding. Despite Jesus reappearing, his friends sort of felt that they'd lost their guiding light. Without him alongside them day by day, how can they carry on? But they've been serving an apprenticeship, learning the ropes, and they've made more progress than they've realised. Jesus had first shared their lives and then started to transform them. It's only now they begin to see this. And they're not going to be completely without him like sad, abandoned orphans, even if he cannot physically be there every day, as present experience hints. Fallible, slow, inconsistent they may be, but they've been personally headhunted. The ultimate catch was the jobs they'd agreed to take on were not temporary, but permanent positions. And paradoxically, shepherding, well, that will be the pinnacle, certainly, of Peter's achievements.